Welcome to another video on building the Dutch tool chest. So in this one we are going to be doing carcass assembly, which is just a fancy way of saying assembling the main box of the tool chest. So there's a few more operations that have to happen on the sides of the chest, and then I'll be gluing everything together. First off, I'm marking and cutting the dado that will hold the bottom of the top compartment, so basically a shelf. Next up, since the tool chest has an angled top, I need to cut that angle into the sides of the tool chest. Alright, so slight detour before I do the assembly. I discovered there were a few
kind of cracks that developed, or checks that developed in a couple of the boards. I think it's just as they were drying and acclimating to my shop. So before I did the assembly, I decided I'd put put some epoxy on a few of the cracks. Yeah, I was pretty liberal with it. And I'll let that dry, hopefully stabilize those checks a little bit. And then I'm going to come back with a card scraper and take off the dried epoxy, the excess epoxy, and also there's just a few kind of marks that have sprung up as I was machining things, so I'll just take those off right now before I assemble it, make it a little easier, and then we'll jump on to the assembly. Okay, so I'm about to start the assembly. For the first time I'm going to be using hide glue. This is liquid hide glue. I've heard really good things about it, and it's supposed to be really good for assemblies because it gives you a longer open time, meaning the glue doesn't dry quite as quickly as it does with PVA, or the yellow wood glue that most people are usually familiar with. So I've got my parts laid out, already did a dry fit, everything looks okay. So first I'm going to be putting the sides on, getting the dovetails fitted and glued up, and then after that I'll be gluing in the shelf that goes in the middle here. So I'm a little nervous doing this with the camera on because usually assembly is kind of a little more hectic than most woodworking, but we'll see how it goes. Alright, I've got the carcass in clamps. I don't know if you can see this as well, but I'm going to use my square to now check the sides relative to the base and see how much adjustment they need. They're definitely out of square a bit. That's to be expected though. And at this stage the glue is tacking up a little bit, but I can definitely still kind of move the joints a little bit and get them perfectly square, which is what I want at this stage. Alright, so I think, yeah, so this side is definitely, the angle is too acute, meaning it's less than 90 degrees. And I think what's happening here is that the clamp is applying pressure not exactly on the joint, but kind of above the joint, which tends to push the wood in this way. So what I want to do is I'm going to put these little blocks of wood between the clamp and the bottom of the carcass to boost the side up a little bit so that it's putting pressure more directly on the joint. And I think that'll help pull this side back into 90 degrees. So I'm going to loosen the clamp a little bit, put these glue blocks towards this end of the carcass, and then we'll try this all again.
Okay, everything's assembled now, and the last little step is to put some nails into that middle shelf, or the bottom of the top compartment. So I'm going to use cut nails here, which means I need to drill pilot holes and then pound the nails in and hope that nothing splits. And after I pound the nails in, I just use a nail set to get those a little bit below the surface, just to make them look a little bit nicer. And then it should be nice and sturdy.